Catherine will speak on my behalf. Mrs. Meghan Markle has repeatedly written to the palace seeking our intervention in the Epstein matter, but, like Andrew, she must face her own consequences.
One phone call was supposed to change everything. Instead, that unanswered call exposed the biggest royal power shift in years. According to high-ranking royal sources and confirmed reports from veteran royal correspondents, King Charles refused to take Meghan Markle's direct telephone confrontation, but the silence itself was only the beginning. Behind the walls of Buckingham Palace, a far more dramatic decision had already been made. The monarch did not simply refuse to engage with the Duchess of Sussex. He removed himself from the battlefield altogether, handing complete control of the Sussex file to Catherine, Princess of Wales. In one calculated move, the king redrew the royal chain of command, leaving Meghan facing the very woman she had publicly criticized, while sending a chilling message that this was no longer a family disagreement. It had become an institutional conflict. Inside his private study, King Charles reportedly delivered the instruction that immediately changed the balance of power. Palace aides recorded a strict directive issued to senior communications officials and private secretaries. The king will not engage in this discussion. From now on, Catherine will speak on my behalf. Those words echoed far beyond the room because they revealed something much larger than a communication strategy. The sovereign was deliberately removing himself from every future Sussex confrontation, transferring authority to the future queen, and creating an entirely new structure designed to shield the crown from emotional negotiations. The palace was no longer reacting, it was reorganizing. Then came the comparison that stunned royal insiders even more. King Charles reportedly invoked Prince Andrew, whose public duties and official status disappeared after the Epstein scandal. The parallel carried enormous symbolic weight. Palace observers immediately understood the hidden message. The communications arriving from Montecito were no longer being treated as personal family correspondence. They were now viewed as an institutional burden requiring careful containment. That single comparison transformed Meghan's position inside palace thinking. The conversation had shifted from reconciliation to damage control, raising the unsettling question of what had convinced the king that such extraordinary measures were suddenly necessary. The answer appeared to arrive from California itself. Meghan Markle reportedly sent dozens of letters and legal briefs directly to the king's private office before the planned July visit. Instead of offering reconciliation, the documents allegedly presented an extensive list of demands. She requested a private telephone conversation with King Charles himself. She sought the monarch's personal assurance regarding comprehensive royal security, high-level accommodation inside the London royal estate, and formal public recognition of her family's status before Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet would arrive at Heathrow Airport. Every request carried enormous symbolic value, but together they formed something much larger. According to palace observers, they looked less like family requests and more like conditions placed before the crown. Buckingham Palace responded with something almost impossible to challenge. Silence. There was no emotional statement, no public argument, and no emergency negotiations. Senior courtiers reportedly reached a collective strategic decision not to answer the calls at all. That silence carried devastating consequences because access to the sovereign represents the highest level of legitimacy inside the monarchy. By refusing direct communication and redirecting every future Sussex matter to Catherine's office, King Charles effectively removed Meghan from the sovereign's level of authority. Every future conversation would now pass through the Princess of Wales, transforming the woman once portrayed as Meghan's rival into the official gatekeeper of every royal discussion. Prince William quickly reinforced that barrier as preparations emerged for the controversial, non-official July visit connected to the countdown events for the Birmingham Invictus Games. The Prince of Wales reportedly transferred every operational and security concern involving Meghan directly into the jurisdiction of his own private office. Palace insiders described the decision as absolute administrative finality. Kensington Palace was no longer treating the Sussexes as relatives returning home. It was preparing for what officials allegedly viewed as an organized media operation. Family conversations were replaced with institutional procedures, creating a bureaucratic fortress designed to protect William, Catherine, and their children from every possible confrontation. Royal analysts following the situation insisted that the king's strategic silence only made sense once Meghan's reported list of demands became clearer. According to media watchdogs and palace observers, the documents arriving in London challenged far more than protocol. They allegedly sought the restoration of senior royal privilege without restoring senior royal responsibilities. That distinction alarmed officials because granting such requests would fundamentally reshape the modern monarchy Charles had spent years trying to streamline. The first demand immediately caught attention across royal circles. Meghan reportedly requested apartment 1A inside Kensington Palace as accommodation for her family. The residence is not simply another royal property. It is the long-established home of Prince William and Catherine, carrying enormous symbolic importance inside the institution. Royal insiders argued that requesting this specific apartment represented far more than seeking secure accommodation. It placed the Sussex family directly inside the physical and administrative heart of the working monarchy, raising questions about whether the request itself carried a deeper message that extended well beyond housing. The correspondence reportedly continued with an extraordinary series of additional conditions. The estate allegedly had to be prepared exclusively with non-chemical cleansing agents, while existing culinary facilities would be replaced with specialized cooking equipment selected from a pre-approved list prepared by the Duchess herself. The requests expanded even further, calling for an elite logistical structure that included 2 permanent nannies trained at the prestigious Norland College, the same institution associated with childcare for the Prince and Princess of Wales. A dedicated private chef, certified yoga instructor, and personal stylist responsible solely for Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet were also reportedly requested. As each condition surfaced, palace officials no longer saw temporary hospitality. They believed they were staring at the blueprint for an entirely separate royal household funded by the institution itself. And the most explosive demand had not even reached the king's desk yet. The financial dimension of the reported demands quickly became the most explosive point inside palace discussions. According to the reports described by royal commentators, the correspondence allegedly insisted that the sovereign grant and royal household funds should absorb the entire financial burden of the proposed visit. That reportedly included the extensive staffing requirements, modifications to the accommodation, elite logistical support, and a sophisticated multi-layered security operation. The legal justification allegedly presented through intermediaries argued that such provisions remained an automatic entitlement flowing from royal status regardless of whether the Duke and Duchess of Sussex continued to perform duties as working members of the monarchy or permanently resided outside the United Kingdom. For palace officials, this was no longer a question of hospitality. It was becoming a constitutional test that threatened the streamlined vision King Charles had spent years trying to establish. According to the reports, once those documents reached the desks of senior courtiers and eventually the king, they were not treated as an opening position for negotiation. They were reportedly viewed as an attempt to establish a precedent capable of reshaping the modern monarchy itself. Palace insiders claim the request challenged the principle that public privilege remains inseparable from public service. If accepted, critics feared the institution could be seen as financing what they described as a parallel royal household independent of constitutional responsibilities. The reported rejection was therefore immediate, setting the stage for an increasingly public confrontation as the planned July visit approached. With private channels reportedly frozen, the strategy appeared to change. Rather than continuing confidential correspondence, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex publicly announced their intention to travel to the United Kingdom during July for countdown events connected with the Birmingham Invictus Games. The announcement immediately attracted intense attention because commentators emphasized that the visit was described as non-official and was reportedly organized without formal coordination or invitation from King Charles. The dispute was no longer unfolding inside palace offices. It had moved directly into public view, where every announcement, every timeable, and every appearance could be interpreted as part of a much larger struggle over influence and legitimacy. Observers suggested that the journey appeared to pursue 2 highly significant objectives. The first centered on Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, who, according to reports, would return to British soil for the first time in 4 years since Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee in 2022. Analysts argued that bringing the children back carried enormous symbolic importance because it visually reinforced their connection to the British royal family despite the continuing institutional separation. Every public appearance involving the children risked becoming a powerful reminder that family relationships and constitutional relationships are not always the same thing. That distinction created fresh pressure on Buckingham Palace as July drew closer. The second objective reportedly focused on the long-running disputes surrounding security. For years, Prince Harry and Meghan had challenged decisions involving the British Home Office and the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures regarding publicly funded protection during visits to the United Kingdom. They had repeatedly argued that the existing arrangements were inadequate for their family's safety. According to political commentators referenced in the reports, announcing a visit before achieving any change in those arrangements created an extraordinarily delicate situation. Any security incident, however minor, risked becoming an international controversy capable of drawing scrutiny toward both King Charles and Prince William, despite the visit's non-official status. The tensions surrounding the July visit also revived older controversies repeatedly referenced by royal commentators. Reports revisited an earlier confrontation during a private Windsor remembrance reception, where trust inside the family was allegedly damaged after disagreement surrounding a family-only balcony appearance. According to those accounts, emotions intensified during private discussions with palace aides, and the incident remained deeply significant in later administrative reviews. Whether every detail unfolded exactly as described or not, commentators argued that the memory of that confrontation continued influencing how later communications from California were interpreted inside royal circles, making reconciliation increasingly difficult. As preparations continued, attention shifted toward Catherine, Princess of Wales, whose reported new responsibility fundamentally altered perceptions of authority inside the monarchy. By placing future Sussex communications under Catherine's administrative oversight, King Charles reportedly achieved two strategic objectives simultaneously. He insulated the sovereign from direct personal confrontation while reinforcing Catherine's growing constitutional role beside Prince William. The decision also created an uncomfortable reality for the Sussexes. Any future engagement with palace structures would reportedly require acknowledgement of Catherine's authority, while refusing engagement would only deepen their institutional isolation. When the July timetable finally approached, newspapers, television networks, and digital platforms transformed the developing situation into one of the most closely watched royal stories of the year. Every airport arrival, every public appearance connected with the Birmingham Invictus Games, every statement, every silence, and every reported logistical decision became another clue in a much larger narrative about succession, authority, public image, and the future direction of the monarchy. Yet through all the speculation, Buckingham Palace reportedly maintained the same disciplined posture, refusing to be drawn into an emotional public battle while allowing administrative decisions to speak for themselves. That may ultimately prove to be the most significant development of all. If the reports are accurate, this story is no longer simply about strained family relationships between King Charles, Prince William, Catherine, Princess of Wales, Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, Prince Archie, and Princess Lilibet. It has evolved into a contest over who defines royal legitimacy in the years leading toward the next reign. The unanswered telephone call, the reported letters from California, the requests involving Kensington Palace, Apartment 1A, the Sovereign Grant, Norland College nannies, security, Heathrow Airport, London, the Birmingham Invictus Games, and every carefully timed public announcement now appear connected by one unmistakable thread. Behind every headline stands a monarchy determined to protect its institutional structure, while an equally determined narrative continues testing its boundaries. And if July marks only the latest chapter rather than the conclusion, then the most consequential move in this royal confrontation may still be waiting to emerge from behind the palace gates.